Coming up next on Backchecking the Bolts.
We're going to see a raft of these current players get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and when they retire in 5-6 years, who's going to be the next great Lightning? And it's kind of hard to say at this point. Braden Point may work his way into the conversation. Braden Hagel may work his way into the conversation, but I think you got a pretty solid 4 or 5 guys.
Welcome to Backchecking the Bolts. Backchecking the Bolts is your cup of coffee to get you the latest on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Join host Jason Linkus and the managing editor of Raw Charge, Justin Godfrey, as they break down the Lightning's most recent games and go beyond the highlights, telling you what the box scores didn't. It's time to drop the puck.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are on the Backchecking the Bolts podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Jason Linkus, and as always, I am joined by the man you can read on Raw Charge, www.rawcharge.com. He's the managing editor. He is Justin Godfrey. Justin, how you doing, bud?
Pretty good, man. Good morning. Another beautiful morning podcast here in lovely Dunedin. It's a little cloudy this morning. May actually get some rain. Good times.
Hey, up here in Des Moines, Iowa, where I'm at right now, it's going to be about 86 degrees, so it actually might be the same temperature as Florida today.
There you go. And home of the enemy for all our Gator fans that are listening today.
Boy, was that a shock. I mean, if you would have told me before the tournament Florida was going to lose early, I never would have thought a team like Iowa. I travel here enough to where I see enough Iowa games. Did not think they were good enough to beat Florida. That has to be one that is going to stick with them for quite some time because they let one slip away. That this is not a good Iowa team.
Yeah.
And for them to just not show up in the first half, I'm sure Gator Nation's going to be chomping at the bit, literally. Didn't even mean to make that pun on words. But, hey, right now I'm in 4th place of 116 brackets. I'm looking good right now. For the first time in a long time, I'm in contention.
There you go. I am not, as I chose not to participate, as I did my usual zero preparation for college basketball this year. But good luck, sir. May your brackets be true for the rest of the way as the tournament continues.
I have to pay off that patio that I just got it. So, hey, Justin, let's talk about the Lightning right now. Last night, sort of a tale of two games. We knew coming off of a long 4-game road trip out west, this was sort of, let's call it a trap game. It's a game that most teams slip up on. They come out slow, and Tampa did. The first period was not kind to them. But in the second and the third, they played Lightning hockey, especially the third period. What was your overall assessment of the game?
Yeah, I wouldn't even go so far as to say the entire first period. I thought probably about 10 minutes in or so, they started to find their footing a little bit. It was kind of unfortunate they gave up that second goal late. Brandon Hagel, I love him. He is a bit of a hothead. He kind of mouths off to the official. It was great. Speaking of college basketball, the official teed him up as Hagel was skating away. So it was kind of comical to see on the overhead shot, the ref just chasing after him and demonstrably penalizing him for quote unquote abuse of the officials. It was kind of unfortunate that they took that penalty right there. I mean, Minnesota's got a heck of a power play and you can't keep giving them chances. They scored on their first 2 opportunities, but I thought 5-on-5, the Lightning kind of found their game, found their legs. Yeah, midway through the period. I mean, it's something we've talked about. We've been known to place a wager or two on hockey contests. And one of those games that we always look at is the first home game after a long road trip, where you bet on the home team just because of what we saw. They had some travel issues getting from Calgary to Edmonton. It was a lot of time zones that they went through for that 4-game trip. You kind of had that feeling that they weren't going to be 100%. Cooper even mentioned it before the game, that it could be a little bit of a struggle. But as the game wore on, they definitely got better. The offense started to flow. They got the lucky break on the Chernak goal where, Gustafsson comes out to play it. It trickles behind him and Chernak busts the camera behind, in the net with his shot. As much as you want to say that's lucky, Chernak, he's never going to be confused with Teemu Selanne racing down the ice, right? The guy does not have wheels, but he busted his ass to get down there. He was the first player on the puck and he put it home. Sometimes luck is the product of hard work. And that's kind of what happened for the Lightning right there. They did get the lucky break, but they were in position to put it away. So I thought it was a really, really really solid win for the Lightning. They played really well. They shut them down in the third period. It's kind of what we're used to seeing. I really enjoyed the win. A couple stumbles early on with the penalty kill, but other than that, I thought they played really well.
John Cooper, after the game, talked about Sabrin, Perry dropping the gloves, sort of changing the momentum of the game a little bit, in a way, waking up the Bolts. How much of a factor do you think that was, just as the wake-up call?
It's kind of been, their MO. They've been the most penalized team this year, and a lot of that has come from fighting majors. They're a team that doesn't want to get pushed around, and I do think a little early they were a little sluggish, maybe not as engaged as they wanted to be. That was the word I think Cooper used, was especially after the Sabrin fight, they were really engaged. Perry, he's 40-some years old. The man's dropping the gloves. Didn't work out too well for him. I don't know if you saw the photos of him during the game, but he took a pretty nasty cut. Yeah, his eye was kind of swelling up a little bit. I thought Sabrin held his own. Sabrin had a bad hit on Quinn Hughes earlier in the game, so he was going to have to answer that bell at some point. Foligno was the one who dropped mitts with him. Had some good moments in that fight as well. Kind of dragged on a little bit longer than it needed to be, but yeah, I think it kind of fired up the Lightning a little bit. Cooper talked about, if these guys are out here doing this, then maybe we need to pick up our game. Talking about the other players, and they really did, especially after the Sabrin fight. I thought they were the better team the rest of the way.
Late in the second period, the game was tied at 3. Radish had just scored on the power play. Minnesota actually scored what looked like was going to be the go-ahead goal. The goal was disallowed. I forget who the player was who knocked Radish into the net. And Vasilevsky didn't have a chance to really make any attempt at a save on the loose puck. I think the goal should have been disallowed, but I've seen, even in the last week, multiple chances in other games where that goal has been allowed. Justin, does the league have an issue, sort of like in the NFL? No one knows what a catch is after a while. In hockey, in the NHL, do we not know really what should be allowed and disallowed as a goal? I feel like the ruling is completely inconsistent game by game, officiating unit by officiating unit.
Yeah, it's, goaltender interference. It's going to be one of those things that I don't know if they're ever going to be able to get right, because as much as the rules are in the book, there is some interpretation, especially when it comes is the goalie able to reestablish himself to make a save. And I think that's kind of the number one thing they're looking at. This year, they've been a lot more clear, in my opinion, and from what I've seen, in regards to where the contact is made. If the contact is made in the crease, I would say 95% of the time, the goal is getting disallowed. Yesterday's little fracas, so it was Bobby Brink, who basically cross-checked Darren Radish into the crease. And yeah, Vasilevsky makes a save, but it's pretty much just because Brink shoots the puck right at him. Puck comes out and McCarron puts it into the vacated net because Radish is basically lying on top of Vasilevsky. And I thought it was kind of funny after the game. McCarron's like, well, I thought he went down pretty easy, for, little tiny Bobby Brink cross-checks 6'8" Darren Radish, which, last time I checked, I don't think Radish is 6'8". So it's kind of interesting. Brink even mentioned it, that he thought he went down a little easy.
Maybe he should be playing for the Gators.
Yeah, maybe he would have helped the Gators. Brink's actual quote was, yeah, I cross-checked him, but he went down kind of easy. So to me, I was like, okay, so you admitted you committed a penalty, and the play probably should have been whistled dead at that moment, but you thought he still went down easy. The rule is the rule. 69.1, I looked it up last night. If, a defending player is pushed, I think it's pushed or penalized, pushed or shoved into the crease in a penalizing manner, the goal will be disallowed. I mean, that's the rule, and that's exactly what happened. The broadcast mentioned, I think it was the Pittsburgh game, had a similar play where the goal stood. So yeah, they get back to your original point of, yes, there's still some inconsistency there. I think the league is working on it. I believe it was a topic at the recent the governor's board meeting that was down in Palm Beach. So it'll be interesting to see if we see anything come out of it when they kind of tweak the rules as they do over the summer. I don't know if it's as big a problem as fans make it out to be, but you'd hate to see it happen in the playoffs where, it affects an important goal. In the context of the game today, yes, it was an important goal, because if Minnesota gets that lead back right at the end of the period, then, it's a different third period. But they got it right. The call, I hate to tell you, Mr. McCarron and Mr. Brink, but the call was right. And you can't cross-check a guy into his goaltender and expect to have the goal awarded.
The third period, I thought, was like playoff hockey. It was tighter. There weren't many opportunities until Eric Chernak and the Lightning decided to play, let's call it college pool, where the ball hits 9,000 bumpers and eventually finds its way into a pocket. Philip Gustafson has to be sick after what he did at 4 minutes left in the game. If you're the Wild, you know you're chasing Colorado, but after losing a game like this, are you sort of resigned to the fact that you're not catching Colorado now?
I don't know if I'd go that far. They played a pretty good game as well.
12 points behind them.
They're 12
They
points.
have 10 left.
Yeah, I think you don't say it out loud, but maybe you feel it. Hey, maybe we should focus on, just catching Dallas and getting that home ice advantage in the first round. Yeah, it's just such a tough break, man. Gustafson had a really good game. The Lightning had some prime chances, even when they were trailing, that he kicked aside. I know Kucherov was right after the first goal Minnesota scored. Kucherov, basically the best chance in the first period. He was all by himself in the slot, right in front of Gustafson, and the goalie made a great save. I do believe that you're looking at, they're probably resigned that they're going to be facing the Stars in the first round. So maybe shoot for that home ice advantage. They were just getting their lineup back together. Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson Ek played their first game in a couple. They were kind of feeling their way back in. They got a big road trip that they're going on now. So we'll see how it turns out in that conference. But yeah, I think you're looking at Colorado as your number one seed in the West right now.
Well, let's look forward. The Lightning play Seattle. Since the Bolts played Seattle on this last road trip, it's been a free fall for the Kraken. They've now lost 4 in a row. They're 5 points behind Nashville for the last wild card spot in the West. You're going to face a very desperate Seattle team. The Lightning can't sleepwalk through this one if they really want to get a W, because I think you're going to get the very best out of the Kraken.
Yeah, I think the next 2 games are going to be kind of tough games for the Lightning. They got the Kraken, and I believe Nashville right after that. So we're looking at, like you said, Seattle's going to be a desperate team. They're going to throw everything at them. It was a fairly close game until it wasn't, when they met as a Lightning opened up that road trip last week. You can't take a night off. We talked about the last podcast. I mean, it's basically playoff atmosphere. It's going to be playoff style games down the stretch here with all the teams in contention that they're playing. And, this could be Seattle's last gasp to turn it around. It would be a huge 2 points for them if they could beat the Lightning. At the same token, the Lightning narrowed their gap with Buffalo to 2 points. So they're kind of still eyeing that first overall seed in the Atlantic. Yeah, I think you just kind of keep going. I thought the Lightning defensive effort really got started with that game in Seattle. So to see them kind of keep that going tomorrow night would be nice. Seattle still has a lot of talent. Again, their style matches up pretty good with the Lightning in regards to the Lightning. They're not a fast, quick upfront team that's going to trouble their defenders. So the Lightning are going to have their chances to break out, to make clean passes out of the zone. So if they can keep doing that, it'll set up the offense. And I don't see them putting up 6 goals on them again. Keep doing what you're doing and pick up those 2 points.
Now, Justin, we talked about the game-winning shot that Iowa had over Florida, and it got me thinking. We have the Nurture Marketing Trivia question of the day coming up, and how can I tie that in? So I said, you know what? Let's take a look at the Tampa Bay Lightning all-time game-winning playoff goal leaders. So we're going to get pretty specific on this one.
Okay.
So thanks to Nurture Marketing, we are going to be giving away a Nikita Kucherov jersey to one lucky contestant each podcast in the month of March. We're going to give a trivia question. If you email backcheckingthebolts@yahoo.com, email one of the answers, you will register for that Nikita Kucherov jersey. Compliments of Nurture Marketing, your IT channel experts. So, Justin, I'm going to read the question one more time. In Tampa Bay Lightning history, who are the top 10 in game-winning playoff goals?
Good Lord, 10?
10.
All right, jeez. It's too early. It's got to be like 5, man. All right. We do 10.
Yeah, you'll get a lot of these, but there's some outliers.
The entire current Lightning roster, and just say that, okay? All right. So, Lightning playoff game-winning goals. All right. just for fun, I'm going to start off with Tyler Johnson.
Tyler Johnson is on the board. Tyler Johnson is second with 9.
Yeah, he had that really good run 2014-15. I think it's probably one of the more iconic ones. So yeah, against Detroit. So
That's a good call. That was one that I didn't think would jump off the page.
That's why the fans love TJ, baby. So let's see who else. Let's throw Stamkos up there.
Stammer with 5.
Okay,
He's
he's
in a huge tie for 7th.
Yeah, a huge tie for 7th. So yeah, there's actually only 4 players. They're all just tied for 7th. All right. Marty St. Louis,
number 3, tied for 3rd with 8.
All right, so we got Stamkos, we got Tyler, Ross Colton. Ross Colton had the big one, but I don't think he had more than that. So
he did not. He's not on the board.
He just has a Stanley Cup clinching goal on his resume.
I tell you, Justin, thanks to Nurture Marketing, your ability in Lightning bar trivia is going through the roof.
Exactly. Good thing March is almost over. We're gonna start running out of questions. All right. How about my boy, number 4, Vincent Lecavalier?
Vinny had 5. He's one of the numerous people tied for 7th.
All right. Rusty Fedotenko. Did he make enough on there?
Ruslan Fedotenko is not on the board.
So again, he just gets to claim the fame of a Stanley Cup winning goal. All right.
Yes.
Victor Hedman, just because he's played in 1,000 playoff games.
Victor Hedman also in the 7th place log jam with 5.
All right, so I'm halfway there, right? I got 5. All right.
Yeah.
Brad Richards. I can't believe I went
Brad
this long
Richards, yes, with 7.
Yeah. Is he number 1 or is he?
He's 6.
6th. Oh,
6, yeah. The person at number 1 has 12.
12 game-winning goals. Andre Palat.
Yes, that was when I saw this. When I saw the stat, I was like, "Wow, he had 12."
The man knew when to score goals.
You're telling me 12 game-winning playoff goals? That's the stuff that people remember 20 years later.
So
good job on that one.
Yeah. So after like 9, 10 guesses, how about the greatest player in Lightning history, Nikita Kucherov?
He has 8. He is tied for 3rd.
All right. So that's what I got 8 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Right.
Yeah, there's a couple. The log jam at 7th place is pretty extensive, but you are missing someone tied for 3rd.
Someone tied for 3rd. All right. Current era or 04?
Current era.
05.
Current era.
Okay. It's going to be obvious when
yes, it is.
When you finally give you enough clues here. Let's see.
He was on the
Braden.
Yeah. Yes, right. I was going to give you a clue, but you got it right there.
So, come on, Godfrey. Let's figure out who's on. And then the final one, current era as well.
Yes, one current era, and actually, there's somebody else. I'm looking at it now. So there's actually another person tied for 7th. So one currently plays for the Lightning, one still in the league, but not on the Lightning.
Okay. Right. Alex Killorn.
Yes. He has 5 as well. And the last one is a current member of the Lightning.
The last one's a current offense or defense?
Offense.
Still a current member.
He's live at the Acropolis.
Yanni.
Yes.
Gordo. All right.
So that is today's Nurture Marketing Trivia question of the day.
Just name a player of the Lightning. And
yes. if you name one player of the Lightning who has played in their team history,
exactly.
If you name one of the players that we had mentioned in the top 10 of game-winning playoff goals, email that to backcheckingthebolts@yahoo.com. That will get you entered for the Nikita Kucherov jersey. Compliments of Nurture Marketing. Justin, we saw earlier yesterday that Paul Maurice coached his 2000th game in the NHL. John Cooper just hit number 1,000. There's only 5 coaches in league history that have hit that with one franchise. You have Cooper, Al Arbor, who won 4 Stanley Cups with the New York Islanders back in the early 80s. Billy Ray, way back in the day with the Chicago Blackhawks. Lindy Ruff, who's back with a second stint with the Buffalo Sabres. And Barry Trotz, who is currently the Nashville Predators general manager. He coached Nashville from their inception. Geez, pretty much through about, I think he coached for about 15 years with the Preds. But Cooper's numbers are right up there with Al Arbor's. Other than the fact that Arbor had 4 Stanley Cup wins, the playoff success, getting to conference finals, getting to Stanley Cup finals, and then winning multiple cups puts Cooper in some pretty rarefied air.
Yeah, he's been the best coach of his era right now. So he's the longest tenured coach in the NHL. I think it's his job as long as he wants it. I don't see the Lightning firing him at any point. There's always, if the Lightning go through, a 3 or 4 game stretch where they struggle, the hashtag fire Cooper makes its appearance on social media from time to time. But it's just one of those situations of, okay, you're going to fire John Cooper, who you're going to get to replace him. After 13, 14 seasons, you would think the message, everyone talks about the message getting stale in the locker room, but I think Cooper is so attuned with his players that he knows how to change that message up. He connects with them pretty well. Everyone who's played for him, you don't really hear any bad things about John Cooper. We saw the remarks from McDavid last week or, a couple days ago about how he has his, the structure of the team and how he communicates with his players. Just speaks to how, people want to play for this guy. And I think it does help the Lightning from time to time in free agency. They're not the biggest free agent spenders, but I think a lot of people talk about wanting to come in, and then they talk about the culture of Tampa Bay, and Cooper's the one who's responsible for that more so than anybody else. So yeah, it's pretty much his job as long as he wants it. I think there was some chatter last year about maybe him wanting to go out to coach Utah. He's pretty good friends with Ryan Smith, who's the owner out there. I think they've connected a few times over some non-hockey related stuff. And then, there was that rumor, but then the Lightning reportedly signed him to a multi-year deal. So he's going to be around for a while. I don't know how else to say. He's just a really good coach. So it'll be interesting to see if he catches any, Al Arbor or anything. It's still a fairly big gap, especially with Lindy Ruff still coaching the Sabres. Lindy's probably going to be around for a couple more years and start padding those numbers. But I think by the time it's all said and done, he's, probably second or third on that list with, all-time games coached for one franchise.
I think the one thing that is unique about Cooper is he hasn't done it with just one group of players. Al Arbor won his Stanley Cups with Brian Trottier, Mike Bossy, Billy Smith. After those guys left, he had Pat LaFontaine, but they never were a true Stanley Cup threat. You look at Lindy Ruff, you look at Barry Trotz, they took underachieving teams and made them achievers. They always took those teams that probably should not have made the playoffs, and they found ways to get in there. Lindy Ruff had more playoff success than Barry Trotz did, but they took those kind of teams and they made them better. John Cooper has taken 2 different units and has turned them into Stanley Cup contenders and Stanley Cup finals participants. And I think, to me, that is the difference in this list. When John Cooper took over, it was a different cast of characters than the one that's there now. And they're still Stanley Cup contenders. They're still at the top of the heap. Part of that, you have to give credit to the general managers that he's been under. But you also have to give credit to Cooper, because that is something that you don't see many coaches. And Mike Sullivan had it in Pittsburgh. He had his unit. They won 2 back-to-back cups, and then he went 5-6 years without any playoff success and then missing the playoffs. He had that success in a short window. For Cooper,
he's missed the playoffs once as a full-time head coach, and they missed it by 1 point. And it was a season where Ben Bishop was hurt, and I believe Stamkos missed a bunch of time. And they went on a tear at the end of the season and almost came back to make the playoffs. But yeah, like you said, with that transition, I mean, if you look at that 2014-15 team that kind of surprised everybody who went to the Stanley Cup, right now, if I'm not mistaken, you had Kucherov on the team, and I believe Hedman. I think they're the only carryovers that are still there. Kind of flipping through the roster real quick just to double check. Vasilevsky played 16 games as well. But to speak to your point, that ability for the team to transition from that super young group, the triplets coming up with Tyler Johnson and Kucherov and Palat, to sustain that success, build on it, and then transition to where the team is today. And yes, they flamed out in the playoffs the last couple of years, but they've also lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champion twice. So a lot of times that's just a bad first round matchup. If they don't play the Panthers in the first round, maybe they go a little bit farther. So we'll see this year. It's going to be a little bit different path for them in the playoffs if they can get some success and get back into, at least the conference final or something like that. I think it's another successful year. But yeah, to be able to make that transition, to not really have a year off, it's a lot harder, especially in the salary cap era. And not only a salary cap era, but you're looking at a cap era where it was flat for 3 years. That cap went up $1 million during the height of the Lightning success, and they were still competitive. So a lot of that is, yes, on the GM to be able to build that roster, but it's also on the head coach to be able to get these guys who are coming in. I think this year is one of his better jobs as well, because he's had such roster turnover. So you've had players who maybe not as much experience in professional hockey, like Charles-Edouard Destou, Max Crozier, Dominic James, some of these guys that came in to fill roles. He's made them feel part of the club. He's coached them to their best abilities and gotten the best performance out of them. He's the best coach in the league right now. I know some players don't like him, or some fans, I should say, don't like him, especially for other teams. He comes off with a little bit, smug from time to time in his press conferences. But again, I think that's part of his act. That's part of who he is. He knows how to play that. You ever watch his press games conferences? Very rarely does he call his players out unless it's needed. I think he did a little bit during the losing streak about their effort levels. The one back in December, the losing streak, he didn't do it too much during the recent one. But yeah, he knows when to press the right buttons, and he knows how to coach through the media. He had a joke yesterday. He had an 8-minute press conference yesterday, I believe, was something along those lines. 8-minute post-game scrum, and he's like, "Oh, that's good enough for the next 3 days, guys." So he has that little sense of humor where he's poking fun at people. But yeah, he's just, I think, for the modern age coach, Cooper's the role model right now.
On social media, we put out there that we are going to take a look at the Tampa Bay Lightning Mount Rushmore. Now, you see a number of different publications and a variety of different sports. They'll put out, okay, who's the top 4 in our franchise? And Justin, you and I were texting yesterday, going back and forth with different names. So first of all, let's talk about some of the candidates for the Tampa Bay Lightning Mount Rushmore. First, you got Stamkos, 555 goals with the Lightning, their all-time point scoring leader. Nikita Kucherov, who will probably pass Stamkos early next year, unless he has a really big last 10 games. He might catch him this year. He's got 1,114 points.
Yeah. Don't put it past him to catch him this year. So,
and then you got Marty St. Louis, 953 points. Vincent Lecavalier, who I still think, in my own opinion, is the most important member of the Tampa Bay Lightning to ever play, because I think he turned the organization around, getting that top-notch player coming in at a time when the Lightning were very desperate for talent. He had 874 points. Victor Hedman has played over 1,150 games, has been a stalwart on the blue line. And then you have guys like John Cooper, Steve Yzerman, and JBB. You have to put them up there. So, Justin, give me your top 4.
Yeah, I think the list I sent you was Stamkos, St. Louis, Kucherov, and Vasilevsky. And whenever people do these kind of lists, I think you always see a goaltender thrown in there. And I don't think you could downplay the importance of having a true number 1 goaltender when we talk about this long stretch of sustained success. I mean, to have somebody you can throw out there 60 games a night and have a better than even chance of winning every single one of those games. Vasilevsky is going to set records, I feel like. He's the fastest to whatever, I think 300 wins is where he got to. I don't know. I forgot how many wins he's at. Yeah, I think he was one of the fastest goalies at 300 wins. If he stays healthy, he's going to be the fastest to 400. He's going to break Bobrovsky's record that is currently held. So that's why I put him on there. Stamkos he's the franchise icon. He's the captain during their golden years. He was the guy they all rallied around. I mean, his goal against Dallas is the most iconic moment in franchise history. You got to put him up there. Kucherov is the best player to ever play for this team. I think St. Louis, Lecavalier, you can kind of argue that spot on there. St. Louis was just the embodiment of this the early success for this franchise after years of wandering in the darkness. You bring in LeCavier, who's the number one draft pick. He's the golden boy, the Michael Jordan, if you will, of the team. And then you also have St. Louis, who's not drafted. He's picked up on waivers. He's a fourth line grinder for his first couple years here, and then turns into one of the best scorers in league history. Yeah, it's kind of hard to narrow it down to 4, which is something, when we first started watching these games, you don't think way back in the college days, you don't think we would ever be at this point. We would have been arguing for Brian Bradley and Alex Elovanov as your Mount
And
Rushmore.
Darren Pupa.
Darren Pupa, yeah, and it's so to see how this organization's flourished in the last 20 years is really great. So, yeah, I mean, it's a hard conversation. And then, like you said, if you start bringing in the non-hockey players, Esposito's got to be on this list. The team doesn't exist without him. Whatever, used car salesman tactics he used to bring this franchise into existence, God bless him. Then you have Bill Davidson. Who knows where this team is if, Art Williams sells it to somebody other than Davidson who invested in the team and invested in the facilities, and then left the team alone. I mean, that's the best thing Will Davidson did. It was like, hey, hockey guys, take care of this team. I'm going to be up in Detroit watching Piston games. Just, cut me my check from all the fans that show up. And then Jeff Vinik. You could put Jeff Vinik's face on there 4 times and it would be a solid Mount Rushmore. Yzerman, who kind of rescued this team. And Al Murray, the head of scouting. Where's this team without those drafts through 2008, 2009 to like about 2015 that built the foundation of this team. So, these Mount Rushmore things are great because they do, they cause this kind of conversation. That being said, is there anyone who's going to jump on the list in the next 5 years in the organization? Probably not. I think we're going to see a raft of these current players get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and when they retire in 5-6 years, who's going to be the next great Lightning? And it's kind of hard to say at this point. Braden Point may work his way into the conversation. Brandon Hagel may work his way into the conversation, but I think you got a pretty solid 4 or 5 guys that you could throw on there right now.
Braden Point right now is 6th in Lightning team history with 681 points. In just 709 games, he's almost a point a game player.
Yeah.
If he would get to 1,000 points, does that change the scope a little bit of Braden Point on this list? I don't know if it does, because Marty St. Louis, league MVP, that is right there, something you can't take away from him. But if Point gets to 1,000 points in his career, now you're assuming a lot. It's going to be a lot more games. You're assuming the Lightning are going to continue to be this offensive juggernaut that they have been. But does that change the conversation?
I think if he adds a couple more cups, maybe if the Lightning pull in another cup or 2 while he's here as that top line center, it'll bring him up. In regards to the standings. Part of his problem is he's always been on a team with a lot of really good players around him. So I do think as much as Lightning fans like him, as much as we appreciate what he does, I think he does get really overshadowed by the Kucherovs, the Stamkos that he played with. I could see him working his way on the list, but I do think maybe if he can garner a Selke or a league MVP, he would need that to kind of bump off anybody who's on the list right now.
My list, Justin, first of all, I do agree with you with Stamkos. I put Victor Hedman on there just because he's the anchor of the blue line and has been for a lot of years. I put John Cooper on there. When you look at these Mount Rushmores, every time you see the Green Bay Packers, there's Lombardi. You see the Pittsburgh Steelers, you see Chuck Noll. You see the San Francisco 49ers, you see Bill Walsh. John Cooper to the Lightning is what those guys were to their franchises. And so I would put Cooper on there. And finally, I know this is going to go against, it's hard to believe it's not going to be Nikita Kucherov, but I still think Vincent LeCavier, getting him when they did was the most important piece of turning this franchise around. There was a lot of rumors back in the late 90s that this franchise wasn't going to exist in Tampa. And they needed that young player to come in to be a star. And was he one of the top 2 or 3 in the league? Probably not. But he was in the top 10 and sometimes in the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that post-Cup, I think he had a couple years there that, he was one of best 3 players in the league. I mean, to me, part of Vinny Lecavalier, and I make no bones about it, Vinny Lecavalier is my favorite Lightning player of all time. I mean, I ride and die with Vinny. He kind of mirrors when I started following the team, so I was able to watch him rise as a player. But I think part of his career is always going to be a big what if. The injuries that kind of got him, like back when I was a small time blogger, I wrote about, did, Matt Cook cost Vinny Lecavalier a Hall of Fame spot with that kind of really unnecessary collision where Vinny ends up hurting his shoulder. His career's not really the same after that. I think he had 1 or 2 really solid years after that, but injuries started creeping in. To your point as to the turning point of the franchise, I do believe that is 100% correct. The Lightning had a chance to draft him or David Legwand. They made the right decision after some early turbulent years with Coach John Tortorella. The rumors of those two almost coming to physical blows in a team meeting seem to be fairly true, at least reported by people who were on the team at the time. The fact that they were able to work that out where, Tortorella wanted Lecavalier gone. He wanted him off the team. And I think they went into the GM, it might have been Dudley at the time, and said, it's either him or me. And they said, nope, you guys are going to figure this out. And they did. And the Lightning go on to win a cup. I mean, what's your iconic moment from the 2004 finals? It's Vinny throwing haymakers with Jerome McNilla, right? That's what a captain does right there. And they put a lot of pressure on the kid when he first came in. He struggled with it and then learned how to be a leader on this team. So yeah, they don't win the cup without him. If they don't win that cup, who knows where this team is post-lockout? Argument for him to be on there is a pretty good one. But again, in my opinion, I kind of look at it more as a stats base, and I think it's just the 4 guys I mentioned, just because of the long run of success, the fact that they've stayed healthy really kind of put them over the edge for Lecavalier for me. So, but if you're going at personal Mount Rushmore, then yeah, another way we could ease our way out of this. The original name of the mountain where Mount Rushmore is, at least in the Lakota tribe language, is the 6 grandfathers. So if we bump the list out to 6, that gives us a couple more.
But that's the easy way out.
Hey, sir, you've known me for 35 years. Has there ever been a time where I did not take the easy way out? I mean, come on now.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's Justin Godfrey.
That's right. Let's look for the loophole here. So yeah, so if we go to the 6 grandfathers, I'm more than happy to add Vinny Lecavalier to that list there. But yeah, it's always a fun discussion to have.
Considering the franchise has only been around for 30 years, the amount of offensive talent that's come through the organization in recent years, you can only point to pretty much Pittsburgh and Colorado that have had multiple generations of supreme offensive talent hit their organization. And it just goes to show just how much talent the Lightning have had. And again, that's why they've had the success that they've had as well. Justin, what's going on at Raw Charge?
Just grinding through the rest of the season here. I mean, we're in the end game now, so just looking forward to this stretch of games against really good opponents. So we'll be posting those previews every day, trying to look at some of the stuff behind the numbers as they battle each other down the stretch here, trying to get to that first spot overall, starting to piece together some playoff stuff that we'll see once April hits, pondering some matchups, how teams kind of play against each other. Beautiful thing about the Tampa Bay Lightning is you never have to worry about draft prep. We can focus on the games actually being played. But yeah, we'll probably delve into some free agency at some point once we have a breath of fresh air around here, a moment to come up and breathe.
Well, that is today's podcast. We will be back to recap the Seattle game and preview the upcoming games this weekend for the Bolts. For my co-host, Justin Godfrey, who you could see at www.rawcharge.com, I'm Jason Linkus. Thanks for joining us today. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We appreciate all the support for the podcast. The last podcast was our most downloaded podcast. We hit 500. Thank you very much for the support. And again, thanks to Nurture Marketing for supporting the Nikita Kucherov giveaway. We'll see you soon. Go Bolts.
Go Bolts.
Thank you for listening to Backchecking the Bolts. We are free and available on all platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon, YouTube, and Deezer. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. You can follow Justin on Blue Sky at rawcharge.com. You can follow the show on X at Tampa_Bolts_pod and on Facebook Instagram, and YouTube at Backchecking the Bolts. If you're interested in advertising on the show or partnering with us, you can find more information in the show notes or email Jason at backcheckingthebolts@yahoo.com.